Princess Ivy of the Binar royal family demands to purchase Lewis Mason, the bearded human diplomat, moments after laying eyes on him during a crucial interstellar trade negotiation. The Grand Hall of the United Earth Federation's headquarters in New Geneva buzzes with anticipation. Ornate chandeliers cast a warm glow over the assembled dignitaries, a mix of Earth's finest and the exotic Binar delegation. Ambassador Sarah Chen stands tall, her crisp uniform a stark contrast to the flowing robes of the alien visitors. Lewis Mason, a 28-year-old xenobiologist with a neatly trimmed beard and broad shoulders, steps up to the podium. He clears his throat, acutely aware of the weight of this moment. As he begins his presentation on Earth's biodiversity, Princess Ivy's large, luminescent eyes widen. She leans forward, captivated not by his words, but by his very form. The princess's antennae quiver with excitement. She whispers urgently to her father, the Binar king, who looks on with growing concern. Lewis, oblivious to the stir he's causing, continues his talk, gesturing to holographic displays of Earth's varied ecosystems. As Louis concludes, polite applause fills the room. Princess Ivy rises abruptly, her iridescent gown shimmering as she strides purposefully towards him. The assembled crowd falls silent, sensing the gravity of the moment. "I wish to acquire this human male," Princess Ivy announces, her translator device conveying her words in crisp English. "Name your price." A collective gasp ripples through the hall. Lewis freezes, his mouth agape. Ambassador Chen steps forward, her face a mask of diplomatic calm. "Your Highness, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. Humans cannot be bought or sold." The princess tilts her head, confused. "But surely everything has a price. I offer rare minerals from our outer colonies." The Binar king approaches, mandibles clicking nervously. "My apologies, Earth friends. In our culture, it is not uncommon to acquire individuals of interest." Louis's mind races. He glances at Ambassador Chen, seeing the tension in her eyes. A military advisor leans in, whispering urgently about the Binar's advanced technology and the need to avoid offense. Princess Ivy, undeterred, continues to gaze at Lewis with open admiration. "Your facial hair, your muscular structure, they are unlike anything in our society. I must have you for my personal collection." The word collection sends a chill down Louis's spine. He struggles to maintain his composure, acutely aware that he's become the center of an interstellar incident. Ambassador Chen's voice is steel. "Your Highness, while we appreciate your interest, Mr. Mason is a valued member of our diplomatic corps. He is not for sale at any price." The princess's antennae droop slightly, but her eyes narrow with determination. "Perhaps we can negotiate our energy conversion technology for this fine specimen?" Louis feels the weight of countless eyes upon him. The fate of Earth's relations with an advanced alien race seemingly hangs on his beard and biceps. He takes a deep breath, then turns to Ambassador Chen. "Ma'am, may I request a private word?" As Chen nods, Louis casts one last glance at the persistent princess. Her multifaceted eyes gleam with desire, leaving no doubt that this interstellar standoff is far from over. Louis's heart raced as he followed Ambassador Chen into a private conference room, the princess's intense gaze lingering in his mind. As the door sealed shut, Chen's composed facade cracked, revealing the gravity of the situation. "Mason, we're in uncharted territory here," she said, her voice low and urgent. "The Binars possess technology that could revolutionize our understanding of the universe. Faster than light travel, energy weapons beyond our comprehension. We need this alliance." Louis ran a hand through his beard, processing the implications. "But surely we can't just sell a human being?" Chen's eyes met his, unflinching. "We need you to consider the princess's proposal. The fate of Earth's technological advancement hangs in the balance." After a moment of tense silence, Louis nodded reluctantly. "I understand. Set up a meeting with Princess Ivy." Hours later, Louis found himself in a lush, secured garden within the diplomatic compound. Princess Ivy approached, her iridescent gown shimmering in the artificial sunlight. "I appreciate your willingness to discuss my offer, Louis Mason," she said, her translator device conveying a hint of eagerness. As they walked among exotic flora, Princess Ivy explained Binar customs. In our society, females are significantly larger and stronger than males. This has led to a matriarchal structure where powerful females often acquire multiple consorts from various species. Louis listened, fascinated despite his apprehension. "And that's what you envision for me?" Before the princess could respond, a deafening explosion rocked the compound. Alarms blared as security personnel swarmed into the garden. "Terran Purity Front!" a guard shouted. "They've breached the perimeter!" Louis' military instincts kicked in. He grabbed Princess Ivy's arm, pulling her behind a thick hedge as energy weapons fire erupted nearby. The princess's eyes widened, a mix of fear and admiration evident as Louis shielded her with his body. "We need to get you to safety," Louis said, scanning for an escape route. He spotted a concealed entrance to the compound's emergency tunnels and guided the princess towards it. As they slipped into the dimly lit passage, Louis could hear the chaos intensifying above. The princess's antennae quivered with each distant explosion. "Who are these attackers?" she asked, her usual composure shaken. "Xenophobes," Louis explained as they moved swiftly through the tunnel. "They oppose any alliance with alien species." Suddenly, voices echoed from around a corner. Louis pressed Princess Ivy against the wall, signaling for silence. 3 armed figures in black tactical gear appeared, sporting the TPF insignia. Louis sprang into action. He disarmed the first attacker with a swift strike, using the captured weapon to incapacitate the other 2. The skirmish lasted mere seconds, leaving Princess Ivy staring at Louis with newfound respect. "Your physical prowess is impressive," she said, her antennae twitching with excitement. They pressed on through the winding tunnels, the sounds of conflict growing more distant. Louis's mind raced, wondering about the fate of Ambassador Chen and the other diplomats. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a small, windowless room, a safe house within the compound. Louis secured the entrance, then turned to find Princess Ivy examining him intently. "It seems we are isolated," she observed. "Our communication devices are non-functional." Louis nodded, realizing the gravity of their situation. They were cut off from both human and Binar authorities, with no way to know when it would be safe to emerge. As the adrenaline of their escape faded, an awkward silence fell between them. Louis cleared his throat. "Since we might be here for a while, perhaps we could learn more about each other's cultures?" Princess Ivy's multifaceted eyes gleamed with interest. "An excellent suggestion, Louis Mason. Tell me, how did you come to possess such admirable facial hair?" As Louis launched into an explanation of human biology and grooming practices, distant explosions served as a grim reminder of the ongoing conflict. Yet in this moment of forced proximity, a tentative understanding began to form between the human diplomat and the alien princess. The safe house's dim lighting cast shadows across their faces as they continued their cultural exchange, neither aware of the diplomatic crisis unfolding beyond their secure walls. Ambassador Chen and her team raced against time to neutralize the TPF threat and salvage the interstellar negotiations, while the Binar King's outrage threatened to unravel years of careful diplomacy. For now, Louis and Princess Ivy could only wait, their forced cooperation slowly fostering a grudging mutual respect. As they shared stories of their respective worlds, the possibility of deeper connections loomed on the horizon, along with the uncertain fate of Earth-Binar relations. As Louis and Princess Ivy settled into their temporary refuge, the muffled sounds of conflict beyond their walls served as a constant reminder of the precarious situation outside. Hours passed, and the initial awkwardness between them began to fade, replaced by a growing curiosity about each other's worlds. "Your facial hair truly is fascinating," Princess Ivy mused, her antennae twitching with interest. "Do all human males possess such adornments?" Louis chuckled, running a hand through his beard. "Not all. It's a matter of personal preference and genetics. Some can grow full beards, others can't grow much at all." As they continued their cultural exchange, Louis found himself increasingly intrigued by Binar physiology. He noticed subtle changes in Princess Ivy's iridescent skin, patterns shifting in response to her emotions. "Your skin, it's remarkable," he observed. "Does it serve a biological function?" Princess Ivy's skin flickered, a mix of deep purples and blues. Indeed, it aids in temperature regulation and nonverbal communication. She paused, her antennae drooping slightly. It also plays a role in our mating cycles. Louis sensed a shift in her demeanor. Mating cycles? The princess's eyes met his, a hint of vulnerability in their depths. Binars have a unique biological imperative. Every 7 years, we must mate or face severe health consequences. She took a deep breath. I am approaching my cycle, Louis Mason. It is why I was so insistent on acquiring you as a consort. The revelation hit Louis like a physical force. Suddenly, the princess's earlier behavior made sense. It wasn't just about collecting an exotic specimen. Her very health was at stake. Before he could formulate a response, a harsh beeping cut through the air. The safe house's security system flashed a red warning on a nearby screen. Perimeter breach detected, an automated voice announced. Hostile forces approaching. Louis sprang into action, pulling up security feeds on the screen. He saw a group of black-clad figures moving through the compound's lower levels with military precision. TPF extremists, he growled. We need to move. Princess Ivy's antennae quivered with alarm. Where can we go? Louis quickly assessed their options. There's a network of maintenance tunnels beneath us. It's our best shot at evading them. He led Princess Ivy to a concealed hatch in the floor, revealing a narrow passage below. As they descended into the dimly lit tunnel, Louis heard the safe house door being breached above them. They moved swiftly through the winding corridors, Louis's military training kicking in as he guided them through the labyrinth. Princess Ivy kept pace, her natural agility surprising him. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with 2 TPF operatives. Louis reacted instantly, disarming the first with a swift strike and using the captured weapon to incapacitate the second. Princess Ivy stared at him, her skin pulsing with shades of admiration. Your combat skills are impressive, Louis Mason. Let's hope we don't need to use them again, Louis replied, leading them deeper into the tunnel network. As they navigated the maze-like structure, Louis noticed the tunnels changing. The utilitarian maintenance passages gave way to sleeker, more advanced-looking corridors. This doesn't look like standard infrastructure, he muttered, a sense of unease growing. They emerged into a vast, dimly lit chamber filled with rows of unfamiliar equipment. Holographic displays flickered to life as they entered, revealing schematics of impossibly advanced technology. Princess Ivy's eyes widened. This is far beyond what your diplomats claimed Earth possessed. Louis stared in disbelief at the displays. He recognized components that looked suspiciously like binar technology, alongside things he couldn't begin to comprehend. It was clear they had stumbled upon a secret Earth government facility, one dedicated to reverse engineering alien tech. Faster-than-light engines, energy weapons, Louis whispered, the implications hitting him like a tidal wave. Earth had been hiding its true capabilities from the galactic community. Princess Ivy turned to him, her expression unreadable. You didn't know about this? Louis shook his head, his legs shaking. No, this is all news to me. The princess's antennae twitched thoughtfully. Such secrets could destabilize our negotiations if revealed. She paused, then added softly, but I understand the complexities of interspecies diplomacy. If you were to become my consort, Louis Mason, I would keep this discovery confidential. Before Louis could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the chamber. A gruff voice called out, They went this way! Search every corner! Louis grabbed Princess Ivy's hand, pulling her towards a promising-looking piece of equipment at the far end of the room. It resembled a circular platform surrounded by pulsing energy fields. Is that a teleportation device? Princess Ivy asked, her voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. I think so, Louis replied, quickly scanning the control panel. It's our only shot at getting out of here. As the footsteps grew louder, Louis made a split-second decision. He activated the device, pulling Princess Ivy onto the platform with him. Hold on, he warned as energy began to crackle around them. The last thing Louis saw before the world dissolved into blinding light was a group of TPF operatives bursting into the room, led by a scarred man he assumed was Viktor Krasnov. Then, everything went white. When Louis's vision cleared, he found himself lying on soft grass, the scent of pine filling his nostrils. Princess Ivy lay beside him, her iridescent skin shimmering in the sunlight, filtering through a canopy of trees. As they slowly sat up, taking in their surroundings, Louis realized they were in a dense forest with no signs of civilization in sight. The diplomatic compound, the TPF, the secret facility, all of it seemed a world away. Princess Ivy's antennae twitched, sensing the air. "Where are we, Louis Mason?" Louis shook his head, a mix of relief and apprehension washing over him. "I don't know, but wherever we are, we're in this together now." As they helped each other to their feet, the reality of their situation began to sink in. Stranded in an unknown wilderness, cut off from their respective societies, Louis and Princess Ivy faced an uncertain future. Their survival and the future of Earth-Binar relations now depended on their ability to work together and overcome the challenges that lay ahead. Their survival and the future of Earth-Binar relations now depended on their ability to work together and overcome the challenges that lay before them in this unfamiliar wilderness. Louis helped Princess Ivy to her feet, steadying her as she swayed slightly. The teleportation had left them both disoriented, but Louis's military training kicked in, prompting him to quickly assess their surroundings. Dense trees towered above them, their branches filtering the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. In the distance, a bird called out, its song unfamiliar to Louis's ears. "We need to find higher ground," Louis said, scanning the terrain. "Get our bearings and look for any signs of civilization." Princess Ivy nodded, her antennae twitching as she processed the new environment. "I concur. My sensory organs detect no artificial structures or energy signatures within range." As they began to move through the forest, Louis's survival instincts took over. He pointed out various plants to Princess Ivy, identifying those that were safe to eat. "These berries are edible," he explained, plucking a handful from a nearby bush. "And these leaves can be used to treat minor wounds." Princess Ivy watched with fascination as Louis fashioned a crude knife from a sharp stone and a sturdy branch. "Your adaptability is impressive, Louis Mason. Such skills are not common among my people." As the day wore on, the forest grew denser and the terrain more challenging. Louis helped Princess Ivy navigate over fallen logs and across small streams, their bodies often pressed close together. He couldn't help but notice the subtle changes in her iridescent skin, the patterns shifting with each touch. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the trees, Louis realized they needed to prepare for the night. He set about constructing a simple shelter using fallen branches and large leaves, while Princess Ivy gathered soft moss for bedding. The temperature dropped rapidly as darkness fell. Inside their makeshift shelter, Louis and Princess Ivy huddled close for warmth. The intimate proximity sent Louis's heart racing, and he could feel the heat radiating from the princess's body. "Are you all right?" Louis asked, noticing Princess Ivy's labored breathing and the rapid pulsing of her skin. She turned to him, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the dim starlight that filtered through the shelter's roof. I'm experiencing some discomfort, Louis Mason. My biological cycle appears to be accelerating." Louis's brow furrowed with concern. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Princess Ivy's antennae drooped slightly. "I fear not. The stress of our situation and the physical exertion of our journey have intensified my mating cycle. Without a suitable mate, I will soon face severe health consequences." The gravity of her words hung heavy in the air between them. Louis felt a mix of concern, attraction, and uncertainty swirling within him. He opened his mouth to speak, but Princess Ivy gently placed a finger on his lips. "Rest now, Louis Mason. We will need our strength for the journey ahead." As dawn broke, they resumed their trek through the forest. Louis's keen eyes spotted a steep cliff face rising above the tree line. "If we can climb that, we might be able to see for miles," he suggested. The climb was arduous, with Louis carefully guiding up Princess Ivy up the treacherous slope. Halfway up, they discovered a narrow opening in the rock face. "A cave," Louis observed. "It might provide shelter from the sun and a vantage point." As they entered the cave, their eyes slowly adjusted to the dim light. Louis gasped as he saw the walls covered in ancient paintings, crude figures of humans intermingled with strange, otherworldly shapes that bore a striking resemblance to Princess Ivy's species. "Impossible," Princess Ivy whispered, her antennae quivering with excitement. "These depictions suggest contact between our peoples long before recorded history." Before they could fully process the implications of their discovery, a faint sound caught Louis's attention. "Do you hear that? Running water." They followed the sound deeper into the cave system, navigating narrow passages and slippery rocks. The journey tested their physical abilities and teamwork, with Louis and Princess Ivy supporting each other through the most challenging sections. As they squeezed through a particularly tight passage, Louis noticed Princess Ivy's condition deteriorating rapidly. Her skin flickered erratically, and she stumbled, nearly falling into a deep crevasse. "Ivy!" Louis called out, catching her just in time. He cradled her in his arms, feeling the heat radiating from her body. "Your cycle. It's getting worse, isn't it?" She nodded weakly, her eyes unfocused. I don't know how much longer I can." Louis's heart raced as he realized the severity of the situation. He had to make a decision, and soon. The sound of rushing water grew louder as they emerged into a vast cavern. An underground river flowed swiftly before them, disappearing into the darkness. "We should follow it," Louis said, supporting Princess Ivy as they walked along the riverbank. Rivers often lead to settlements. As they navigated the treacherous path alongside the underground river, Louis's mind whirled with conflicting thoughts. The princess's life was in danger, but the implications of becoming her mate were staggering. What would it mean for Earth-Binar relations? For his own future? After what felt like hours of careful progress, they saw a glimmer of light ahead. The cave opened up into a lush, hidden valley, bathed in sunlight. In the distance, a thin plume of smoke rose above the treetops. "Look!" Louis exclaimed. "That must be a settlement. We can find help there." But as he turned to Princess Ivy, his heart sank. She had collapsed to the ground, her skin pulsing with alarming intensity. Her eyes fluttered open, filled with pain and desperation. "Louis," she whispered, reaching out to him. I can't." Louis knelt beside her, torn between his duty, his growing feelings, and the immediate threat to Princess Ivy's life. The smoke from the distant settlement seemed to mock him, so close yet so far. He looked into Ivy's eyes, knowing that his next decision would change everything. As he opened his mouth to speak, a distant rumble echoed through the valley, adding yet another complication to their already precarious situation. Louis looked from Princess Ivy to the distant smoke, and back again, his heart pounding. He knew what he had to do. "Ivy," he said softly, cradling her face in his hands. "I can't let you die. I'll be your mate." Her eyes widened, a mix of relief and concern flickering across her features. "Louis, are you certain? The consequences—" "Don't matter right now," he finished, pulling her close. "All that matters is saving you." As their bodies intertwined, Louis was surprised by how naturally they fit together. The differences in their physiologies seemed to melt away as they connected on a level beyond the physical. Waves of sensation washed over him, unlike anything he had ever experienced. Suddenly, Louis's mind exploded with vivid images. He saw vast crystalline cities, felt the thrum of advanced technology, heard the lilting melody of the Binar language. It was as if Ivy's entire culture was being downloaded directly into his consciousness. When it was over, they lay tangled together on the soft grass, both breathing heavily. Louis felt different, changed in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. His senses seemed sharper, more attuned to the world around him. "Ivy," he whispered, helping her sit up. "How do you feel?" She blinked, her iridescent skin pulsing with a healthy glow. "I am recovered. Thank you, Louis." Her antennae twitched, studying him intently. "But something has changed in you as well." Louis nodded, standing up and offering her his hand. As they began walking towards the smoke plume, he found himself instinctively avoiding poisonous plants and sensing the presence of water sources before they were visible. "It's like I can feel the forest," he explained, guiding Ivy along a barely visible game trail. "Everything seems connected somehow. They trekked for hours, Louis's newfound abilities making the journey easier than it should have been. As they neared the source of the smoke, they came upon a clearing housing a small, high-tech facility. A research outpost? Ivy wondered aloud. Before Louis could respond, a door slid open, and a man in a lab coat stepped out. "Well, well," he said, a curious gleam in his eye. "Unexpected visitors. I'm Dr. Marcus Reeves. Please come in out of the heat." Louis and Ivy exchanged a glance before cautiously following Dr. Reeves inside. The interior was a stark contrast to the wilderness outside. Gleaming metal surfaces and holographic displays filled the room. "I must say I'm fascinated by the two of you," Dr. Reeves said, circling them slowly. "A human and a Binar, out here in the middle of nowhere? And there's something different about you both." Louis tensed, his heightened senses picking up on a shift in the doctor's demeanor. "We appreciate your hospitality, Dr. Reeves, but we should really be going—" "Oh, I'm afraid I can't let you leave just yet," Reeves interrupted, his friendly facade dropping away. "You see, I've been conducting some rather sensitive experiments here. Alien-human hybridization. And you two, you're the missing piece I've been searching for." In a flash, Reeves lunged for a nearby console. Louis, moving with speed he didn't know he possessed, tackled the doctor before he could reach it. They grappled on the floor as Ivy rushed to help. In the chaos, Ivy stumbled against a large cylindrical device. It hummed to life, bathing the room in an eerie blue glow. Time seemed to slow, then speed up erratically. "The temporal distorter," Reeves cried out. "You fools! Do you know what you've done?" Louis felt as if he were moving through molasses as he struggled to reach Ivy. Outside the facility's windows, he could see the sun rising and setting at impossible speeds. Days passed in the blink of an eye. When the distortion finally stabilized, Louis found himself kneeling beside Ivy, who was clutching her swollen abdomen. Somehow, weeks had passed inside the facility, while only hours had elapsed outside. "Louis!" Ivy gasped, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. I'm pregnant." Before Louis could process this shocking development, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The temporal distortion was growing unstable, threatening to tear the outpost apart. "We need to get out of here," Louis shouted over the din, helping Ivy to her feet. He glanced at the unconscious form of Dr. Reeves, then made a split-second decision. Rushing to the main computer, he downloaded as much data as he could onto a portable drive. As the walls began to crack and equipment sparked dangerously, Louis and Ivy stumbled out of the facility. They barely made it clear before the entire structure imploded with a thunderous boom, leaving nothing but a smoking crater. Panting heavily, they turned to face each other, the full weight of what had transpired beginning to sink in. But before they could speak, the sound of approaching vehicles filled the air. A team of heavily armed soldiers burst from the tree line, led by a stern-faced woman Louis recognized as Commander Elena Volkov. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene before her. The destroyed facility, the clearly pregnant Binar princess, and Louis, whose appearance had subtly changed in ways that marked him as no longer entirely human. "Louis Mason," Volkov said, her voice a mix of relief and confusion. "We've been searching for you for days. But what in the world happened here?" Louis looked at Ivy, then back at the commander, knowing that the explanation would be long and complicated. As the joint human-Binar security team surrounded them, Louis realized that their ordeal in the wilderness was over, but a new and potentially more challenging journey was just beginning. "Commander," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him, "we have a lot to discuss." "Commander," Louis began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him, "we have a lot to explain." Commander Volkov raised her hand, silencing him. "Save it for the debrief, Mason. Right now, we need to get you both to safety." As the security team escorted them to the waiting transport vehicles, Louis felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. The events of the past few days, or was it weeks, had taken their toll. He stumbled and Ivy caught him, her touch sending a jolt of energy through his body. "Louis," she whispered, concern evident in her multifaceted eyes. "I'm fine," he assured her, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. The journey to the secure medical facility on the outskirts of New Geneva passed in a blur. Lewis found himself hyper-aware of every bump in the road, every shift in air pressure. His new senses were overwhelming, picking up on things he'd never noticed before. As they arrived at the facility, a team of medical professionals swarmed around them. Louis recognized Dr. Amelia Chang, Earth's leading xenobiologist, among the white-coated figures. "Fascinating," Dr. Chang murmured, her eyes darting between Lewis and Ivy. "Let's get them to the examination room immediately." The next few hours were a whirlwind of tests, scans, and questions. Lewis felt like a lab specimen, poked and prodded from every angle. He caught glimpses of holographic displays showing his DNA structure, noticing strange patterns that he instinctively knew weren't supposed to be there. "Incredible," Dr. Chang said, reviewing the results. "Mr. Mason, your DNA shows signs of partial binar integration. It's unlike anything we've ever seen." Lewis nodded, unsurprised. He could feel the changes within him, a constant hum of energy just beneath his skin. "And Princess Ivy," Dr. Chang continued, turning to the Binar Royal, "your pregnancy is progressing at an unprecedented rate. The temporal distortion seems to have accelerated the process significantly." Ivy placed a hand on her swollen abdomen, her skin pulsing with a soft glow. "Is the child healthy?" Before Dr. Chang could answer, the door to the examination room slid open. Ambassador Sarah Chen strode in, followed by a tall, regal figure that Louis recognized as the Binar King. "Your Majesty," Ivy gasped, attempting to stand. The Binar King waved her back down, his antennae twitching with what Louis now understood was a mix of concern and curiosity. "Please, daughter, rest. We have much to discuss." Ambassador Chen's eyes narrowed as she took in the scene before her. "Dr. Chang, what exactly are we dealing with here?" As the doctor launched into a detailed explanation of their findings, Louis felt a strange pressure building in his head. The world around him seemed to fade, replaced by streams of data and code. He blinked, trying to clear his vision, but the information kept flooding in. Suddenly, he was aware of every system in the facility: security protocols, medical records, classified files. It was overwhelming, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. "Lewis!" Ivy's voice cut through the data stream. "What's wrong?" He opened his mouth to respond, but instead of words, a burst of information exploded from him. Holographic displays around the room flickered, filling with classified data about Earth's latest technological advancements. Ambassador Chen's face paled. "Shut it down! Shut everything down now!" As the room erupted into chaos, Louis felt a sharp pain in his temple. The data stream cut off abruptly, leaving him gasping and disoriented. "What? What just happened?" he managed to ask, his voice hoarse. Dr. Chang was at his side in an instant, scanning him with a handheld device. "It seems your new abilities extend beyond physical enhancements. You just interfaced directly with our computer systems." The implications of this revelation hung heavy in the air. Ambassador Chen was already on her comm device, speaking urgently to someone about security protocols and potential breaches. The Binar King, however, seemed more intrigued than alarmed. "This is unprecedented," he said, his voice a melodic hum. "Perhaps this union between our species was meant to be." Before anyone could respond to this statement, Ivy let out a sharp cry of pain. All eyes turned to her as she doubled over, clutching her abdomen. "The baby!" she gasped. "It's coming!" Dr. Chang sprang into action, barking orders to her medical team. "We need to move her to the specialized delivery room immediately. This pregnancy is progressing faster than we anticipated." As they rushed Ivy out of the room, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Commander Volkov burst in, her face grim. "We have a situation," she announced. "The Terran Purity Front has somehow learned of your location. They're launching an attack on the facility." Louis felt a surge of protective instinct wash over him. He stood, ignoring the protests of the medical staff. "I need to help defend the facility." Commander Volkov looked him over, noting the purpose in his eyes and the subtle changes in his physique. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "Follow me. We'll need every advantage we can get." As Louis moved to follow her, he cast one last glance at Ivy, being wheeled away on a gurney. Their eyes met, a silent communication passing between them. Then he turned and raced after Volkov, his enhanced senses already picking up the sounds of battle in the distance. The future of two worlds hung in the balance, and Louis knew that the next few hours would determine the fate of not just his child, but potentially the entire human-binar relationship. With newfound strength coursing through his veins, he prepared himself for the fight of his life. With newfound strength coursing through his veins, he prepared himself for the fight of his life. Louis sprinted down the sterile hallways, his enhanced senses picking up the chaos unfolding around him. The facility shook with each explosion, and the acrid smell of smoke filled his nostrils. He could hear the rapid footsteps of the TPF forces closing in, their weapons primed and ready. As he neared the delivery room, a deafening blast rocked the building. The lights flickered, plunging the corridor into momentary darkness. Louis's heart raced as he realized the TPF had breached the inner defenses. He burst through the doors of the delivery room just as Dr. Chang exclaimed, "It's a boy!" The scene before him was surreal. Ivy lay on the bed, exhausted but radiant, while Dr. Chang cradled a tiny, iridescent form. The child's skin seemed to shimmer, catching the light in ways Louis had never seen before. "Louis," Ivy called out, her voice weak but filled with joy. "Come meet our son." He approached, his steps hesitant, overwhelmed by the moment. As Dr. Chang placed the newborn in his arms, a jolt of energy surged through him. The world around him faded away, replaced by a cascade of vivid images. Louis saw his son growing, a bridge between two worlds. He witnessed the child's unprecedented abilities unfolding, manipulating technology with a mere thought, communicating across vast distances, unlocking secrets of the universe that had long eluded both humans and binars. But the visions also showed darker possibilities, sinister figures seeking to exploit the child's powers, shadowy organizations plotting to reshape galactic order. Louis felt the weight of these potential futures pressing down on him. The visions vanished as quickly as they had come, leaving Louis gasping. He looked down at his son, marveling at the tiny being who held so much potential. Before he could fully process what he had seen, the door to the delivery room exploded inward. Viktor Krasnov, leader of the TPF, stormed in with a squad of heavily armed extremists. "Hand over the abomination," Krasnov snarled, his cybernetic eye glowing an ominous red. Louis's body moved on instinct. He passed the child back to Dr. Chang and lunged at Krasnov, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to close the distance in a heartbeat. The two men collided in a flurry of strikes. Louis's newfound strength matched Krasnov's cybernetic enhancements, blow for blow. They grappled, crashing into medical equipment and sending monitors flying. As they fought, Louis felt a strange connection forming with the facility's systems. Information flooded his mind, security protocols, layout schematics, emergency procedures. Without fully understanding how, he mentally triggered the building's lockdown sequence. Blast doors slammed shut throughout the facility, trapping TPF forces in isolated sections. Alarms blared as the ventilation system began pumping sedative gas into the sealed areas. Krasnov, realizing his forces were being neutralized, fought with increased desperation. He managed to break free of Louis's grip and drew a wicked-looking combat knife. "You can't stop progress," Krasnov spat, slashing wildly. "Humanity must remain pure." Louis dodged the attacks, his enhanced senses allowing him to anticipate each move. He caught Krasnov's wrist mid-strike and twisted, forcing the knife from his grip. In that moment of distraction, Ivy made her move. Despite her weakened state, she had been concentrating, interfacing with the medical equipment around her. Suddenly, the machine sprang to life. Monitors became projectiles. IV stands transformed into electrified staffs. The makeshift weapons assaulted the remaining TPF forces, catching them off guard. Louis used the chaos to his advantage, landing a series of punishing blows on Krasnov. Just as Louis gained the upper hand, the sound of boots thundered down the hallway. He tensed, preparing for reinforced TPF opposition, but instead saw Ambassador Chen and the Binar King leading a joint human-Binar strike team. "Secure the room," Chen ordered as her forces flooded in. Krasnov, seeing his chances of victory evaporate, made a desperate lunge for the newborn. Louis intercepted him, using his enhanced strength to lift the TPF leader bodily and slam him to the ground. "It's over, Krasnov," Louis said, pinning the man with a knee to his chest. As the strike team secured the TPF prisoners, Louis returned to Ivy's side. Dr. Chang handed him their son, and he cradled the child close, marveling at the tiny being who had already changed so much. Ambassador Chen approached, her expression a mix of awe and concern. "We need to move you to a secure location immediately. The implications of this, they're beyond anything we've dealt with before." Louis nodded, understanding the weight of the situation. As they prepared to leave the delivery room, he cast one last glance at the subdued Krasnov. The man's defeat marked not just the end of this battle, but the beginning of a new chapter in human-alien relations, one that would be shaped in large part by the child in his arms. With Ivy beside him and their son held close, Louis stepped into the corridor, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The future was uncertain, but for now they were together, and they were safe. Safe, and that was all that mattered for now. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. The small family unit of Louis, Ivy, and their son Leo had settled into a rhythm aboard the specially designed space station orbiting Earth. The station, a marvel of joint human-binar engineering, served as both their home and a neutral ground for diplomatic relations between the two species. As Leo's 5th birthday approached, Louis found himself marveling at his son's rapidly developing abilities. He watched as the boy effortlessly interfaced with a complex navigational console, his small fingers dancing across the holographic display. "Leo, remember what we talked about," Louis said gently. "It's important to ask before making changes to the station's systems." The boy looked up, his iridescent eyes shimmering with intelligence beyond his years. "But Dad, I improved the efficiency by 12.3%. The old algorithm was suboptimal." Ivy glided into the room, her antenna twitching with amusement. "He's not wrong, you know. Our son has quite the gift." Louis couldn't help but smile. Leo's unique physiology allowed him to bridge the gap between human and binar technology in ways they were only beginning to understand. It was both awe-inspiring and a little terrifying. Their peaceful routine was shattered on the eve of Leo's birthday. Louis was in the midst of planning the celebration when alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors in an eerie glow. "Security breach in sectors 3 through 7, an automated voice announced. "All personnel to designated safe zones." Louis' enhanced senses kicked into overdrive. He could hear the distant sounds of weapons fire and smell the acrid scent of burning circuitry. His mind raced as he tapped into the station's security feeds. "Ivy," he called out. "It's a coordinated attack. Multiple entry points. They're after Leo." Ivy appeared at his side, her royal binar training evident in her poised demeanor. "I've initiated evacuation protocols for the civilian population. We need to get Leo to the secure core." As they raced through the station, Louis mentally interfaced with the defense systems. He coordinated with the human binar security forces, sealing off corridors and rerouting power to critical areas. They found Leo in his quarters, surrounded by a shimmering field of holographic projections. The boy's face was a mask of concentration as he manipulated the images. "Leo, we need to go," Ivy said urgently. "It's not safe here." "I know, Mom," Leo replied, his voice eerily calm. "I'm creating decoys. It'll confuse them." Louis watched in amazement as multiple holographic versions of Leo sprang to life throughout the station. It was a brilliant tactic, one that even he wouldn't have considered. Commander Elena Volkov's voice crackled over the comm system. "Mason, we've identified the attackers. It's a coalition of anti-alien groups led by Cassandra Reeves. They're after Leo." Louis' blood ran cold. Cassandra Reeves, sister of the disgraced Dr. Marcus Reeves, had become a vocal opponent of human-alien cooperation. Her involvement meant this was more than just a simple attack. It was an attempt to reshape the future of interspecies relations. As they made their way to the secure core, Louis could sense the battle raging around them. The station shuddered under the impact of explosions, and the air was thick with the smell of ozone and fear. Suddenly, a group of heavily armed attackers rounded the corner. Louis stepped forward, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to disarm the first two before they could even raise their weapons. Ivy moved with fluid grace, her binar fighting style a blur of precise strikes. Leo, watching his parents fight, closed his eyes in concentration. The corridor's lighting systems flickered, then overloaded in a brilliant flash that blinded the remaining attackers. It gave Lewis and Ivy the opening they needed to neutralize the threat. As they reached the secure core, they found Commander Volkov waiting for them. Her face was grim as she reported, "We've managed to trap most of the invaders in the outer sectors, but Reeves and her inner circle are still at large." Louis nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. He turned to Ivy and Leo, an idea forming. "I have a plan, but it's risky. Leo, we need your help." As Lewis explained his idea, Ivy's eyes widened. A galactic broadcast? Lewis, the strain on Leo could be immense. "I can do it, Mom," Leo said, his young face set with perseverance. "I want to help." With the family in agreement, they moved to the station's advanced communication array. As Ivy and Lewis lent their strength through their familial bond, Leo connected to the system. The boy's face contorted with effort as he sent out a powerful telepathic message, carrying not just words but emotions and shared experiences across the vastness of space. Lewis felt a surge of pride as his son became a beacon of unity, reaching out to all known sentient species in the galaxy. As the message spread, the tide of the battle began to turn. Reports flooded in of attacking forces standing down, their perseverance shaken by the shared vision of unity and cooperation. In the aftermath of what would come to be known as the galactic empathy wave, Lewis held his exhausted son close. Ivy joined them, her antennae glowing with a mix of relief and pride. "You did it, Leo," Lewis whispered. "You showed everyone a better way." As the family embraced, Lewis knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was changing, and they would be at the forefront of that change. The future held challenges, but also unprecedented opportunities for unity and understanding. And they would face it together, as a family that bridged worlds.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.